Hey there, and welcome to another episode of Delivering Marketing Joy. I am your host, Kirby Hassman, and joining me today, a brand new rock star, first-time guest. I'm super excited for him to be with us today. He's the owner and CEO of Roar Media, and he's an expert in digital marketing, so I can't wait to chat him up on this. Dallin, Cottle, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. Super excited.
Cool. Well, so digital marketing, it's funny. I was thinking about this. Both of us are in the marketing industry, and digital marketing is one of those terms right now that's just being thrown around. And I feel like it's being thrown around to describe a bunch of different things. So I thought I'd like to go to the expert here and just define it. So can you define digital marketing, sort of what it actually is, and give us some 101 tips on how to get started doing digital marketing right if we're not already doing it?
Yeah, great question. So, digital marketing, really anything that's digital, right? There's a lot of different mediums, but you're absolutely right. That's where it can get really thrown into the mix of, well, our local news station now does an ad online that's digital marketing, right? Technically, right? Yeah. So you'd start breaking down digital marketing as like, well, now you have, paid social, you have just organic social, ads, you have, or just organic posting, right? You have your, literally all of those different components of like paid social, paid search, everything that kind of comes underneath that umbrella. But digital marketing, yes, broad terms, right? So it's like, what's working for you? Oh, digital marketing is working. It's like, well, that doesn't really tell, that's really too broad. And so one of the things that I've seen with a lot of the business owners that we work with, and we work with businesses of all different sizes. So that's one thing that when we first started the agency, we realized there was a huge gap in the market for the businesses that are just starting out. And so we wanted to create solutions for them, but also create solutions for our clients who are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars every month in ads.
Right.
That's a pretty tough feat as an agency to service that kind of spectrum, right? And so we had to do things very different than just, either you're an enterprise level agency or you're a lower tiered agency. We had to kind of, play back and forth. And the one thing that I've noticed across the board, doesn't matter how big, how small the business is, when it comes to digital advertising, it comes down to one principle, and it's high velocity marketing.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is it's whatever you choose to do, you have to go at it with a high velocity. Okay. So when chatbots first were kind of released, like with Messenger on Facebook, everybody went to chatbots because it's the next shiny thing.
Right.
Well, as soon as they see the next shiny thing and they're only 60% of the way built out over there, they shift. When what we're trying to do is provide value in the marketplace, contribute, give content, and in return, when we give out all the value, it comes back around, right? And so, but if we go and we get 70% of the way ready to share the content, nothing gets shared. And then we shift. And then we wonder why digital marketing doesn't work, right? So then in the desperation, we say we should hire an agency, right? To save us, right? So that we can finish all these projects we started. And that's the endless, kind of cycle where most businesses fall. But the ones that succeed are the ones who see it all the way through at a high velocity. They go super fast, they speed it up, they mess up along the way, but they complete the actual direction that they're headed in.
That's super interesting. Because that's exactly right. I feel like there's always a new shiny thing. And so the idea of sort of being all in on one pathway makes a ton of sense. So it leads nicely into my next question, because there's a lot of companies who feel like, okay, I can do this myself. I can do the digital marketing thing, or so there's a lot of people doing it, or as I like to say, trying to do it. Right. Yeah, so exactly. How do you know when, obviously you're an agency that people hire. So how do you know when to hire an agency, or should you at all?
Yeah, great question. So again, this kind of goes back to how do we service clients of all different sizes, right? And so we introduced, as part of our agency services, we have a full service agency, but then we have underneath that, we have fractional CMO. So what that basically means is we become your chief marketing officer, and we help strategize where you're headed, right?
Okay.
And so going through this strategy and kind of understanding more of the insides of, hiring people on their teams and helping them with that, and also helping with directing where should they go with digital marketing to start out. What we've kind of seen is the place that you should hire is when you have capital to do it, right?
Yeah,
So
okay.
like first things, first is like, if you have the capital, you have more, resources or capital than you have time, then hire it out. Let the experts come in and do it, right?
Okay, that makes sense.
Now, what you didn't ask was, how do you know you're hiring the right one? That's a different question, right? We can go into that. But the big question is when should you do it? Is at the point when you have enough capital. But I'd also say when my team is, having our initial discovery calls with a business, we want to find out, like, have they tried it themselves? Like, do they actually know what it's going to feel like to spend $1,000 on Facebook ads for the first time, or 10 grand or whatever it is? And if they don't know what it's like, sometimes there could be, we're not wizards, so there can be a really unrealistic expectation, right? That we're gonna wave a wand and all their troubles will be gone, when all it does is solve one problem and it's getting more attention and traffic, right?
Right. Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense, is figuring out exactly what the goal of it, because that's another part I hear all the time is like, well, what is it you were actually trying to accomplish? Right.
Yeah,
like, is it
exactly.
more people into your store, more people to your website, more phone calls, what's the actual way we're going to measure success? Because
100%.
that can get you totally sideways as well.
Exactly. And right along that same line is when the other kind of part of this is when you find something that's working. So let's say you were to DIY, like you don't have the money to just throw it at agency work. Well, as soon as you start crack a formula, hand it off. Just like any good business owner would know, as soon as you figure it out and you're able to, make it repeatable, like either go out there and actually hire someone to fill in the gaps, right? Or bring in an expert that can expand on it and take it to the next level. But if you have a crappy offer or product that hasn't done well, putting more money behind it isn't going to make the problem go away. It's the same principle of, you're the same person with money or without. Money will just amplify the person that you are, right? If you're giving when you're poor, you're going to be giving when you're wealthy, right?
That's a great point.
Same way with advertising.
That's a great point. I like that a lot. So in doing a little research about you, I know that you talk a little bit about using a CRM, right? And so I get just based on what I've read, I get the idea that you're a fan. So how can a company use a CRM to grow?
Yeah. So CRMs have really adapted over the last, especially over the last couple of years. It seems like every day you're on Facebook and you're getting use this new email software platform, it'll solve all your problems, right? Or try this out and it will solve all your problems. So the way to look at a CRM is it's like you're going to Home Depot and you need to buy some sort of tool. You need to buy a hammer, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, great, I've got this hammer now. What am I going to do with it? Right. On a very dumbed down level, right? Well, we can start hitting things, right? A CRM, you can start throwing contacts into it and hopefully that you can kind of start to keep track of them. But the true essence of what we've kind of built over here with Roar Media is we wanted to make sure that the CRM talks with marketing, right? Sales and marketing go hand in hand.
Yeah.
What happens over here with sales, we need the feedback to know if they're not getting good leads, then the marketing needs to change, right? Or the channel needs to change. And so a couple of years back, when we started working with the United States Air Force, I dove into trying to learn a little bit more about their history. Well, I came across this guy by the name of John Boyd. Maybe some of your listeners have heard of John Boyd, but he was a fighter pilot.
Okay.
Back in World War II. And his whole mission, was to stay alive and to help other people stay alive, right?
Right.
And so when it's life or death, you start to think a little bit differently about the way that you're doing things. And he said that there was really no way for them they weren't taught really a way to make these split decisions, these really fast decisions or high velocity decision making that we might call it, to actually create a system that can be repeated with every single person flying a plane.
Right.
And so he developed a kind of a theory called the Ooda Loop. So observe what's going on around you, right? Orient yourself, make a decision, and then act. And you have to do that in a split second, right? You need to be able to make that, adjustment there. And so in this theory, we pulled that in, and we were like, as I started researching this, I was like, man, this is marketing 101. This is like the adaptability to realize what's going on around us. It's to help your audience adapt to you. And so what we started to realize was Ooda was not just a principle of, for fighter pilots, but it was a principle for every business owner, every marketer, and every CRM, where if the CRM can help you observe, so the data that you're getting back, right, can help you actually start to orient by putting them into pipelines and helping people move through the process, right? Help them make decisions by creating reviews and testimonials and things that the system can actually help perpetuate that. And then can the actual system help process the payment and actually get, and then repeat the cycle of getting the word back out, getting the data, and rinse and repeat. And so we named our platform that we built Ooda Pro, right? Based off of that same kind of concept. And so whatever business you're running, those principles still apply. So whether you're using a Google Sheet or whether you're using a fancy platform, the main principles apply, that each of those different steps just need to be in place. And as long as those are in place, then the actual mechanism is not as important as the principle behind it.
That's great stuff. I like that a lot. Ooda. I'm gonna be thinking about that all day.
Look it up.
Yeah. All right. So final question for you. Like, what mistakes do you see? I mean, obviously you mentioned I'm working with big organizations, small organizations. What are mistakes that you see brands making when they try to tell their story? And what advice do you have for them to fix it?
Yeah. Telling your story. So I think that the first thing that I would say there is, most of the time it's funny because when we interact in person, like we rarely do the same thing that we do online. When we go online, we turn into weirdos. Like,
yes, I agree.
Like we would never just be like, well, let's wait for everyone else to show up to this party before I start talking to you. Right.
Yes, that's right. That's a great example.
One's doing that. Like, you're going to start talking to whoever's showing up. Right.
Yeah.
And so
that's a great example.
We never kind of do the same things. We feel like we need to almost change in this alter ego, right? When we go online, I always tell people, just like, get on there and start, telling the story. The more vulnerable you can be, the better. And then the next thing is, don't get caught up in features. No one cares that you have 100 hours of video content. No one really cares. Like, to be honest, what they would like to hear is 30 minutes of video content that does the same thing as the 100 hours, right?
Yeah, right.
So it's more about the benefit, or, it's not about the plane, it's the destination, right? Some people will say. And so it's a matter of not saying the 100 video hours, but the 100 video hours, so you can learn all the necessary steps to rock your marketing. Right. So you can, take all of that knowledge that's going to save you time, make you more money, so you can spend more time with your family, right? Like, what's the actual end goal? And so as you're telling your story, bring those things in there. Stay away from talking about all the noise and really get down to, what are they actually going through? What's the pain? What's the emotion? It's not the demographic, it's the psychographic. It's what's up here and what's in here for people that they really want to know that you're connected.
That's great. That's really, really good. It's funny. I have often said, I'm like, if people talk all the time, it's like, well, social media or online, it's like, that's different than real life. I'm like, it shouldn't be. The more we acted like our three-dimensional selves, the more fun and interesting content in social media would be, because but we get away from it. And I love your example about Zoom. That's hilarious. It's like, we just want to sit there and be silent. That doesn't make any sense.
Or you go to a networking meeting and you run around, there's somebody running around just like yelling like, hey, I know so-and-so that came here once, and then they just run off for somewhere, right? Like, that's LinkedIn, like mass messaging, like bots, right? You're just like, well, who is this psycho that's just running around like yelling stuff, right? Like, let's have conversations, right? Like, we live in a new economy. Like, people want interaction. People are starving for human interaction.
Yes.
So they're going to want, and they're way more skeptical than they ever used to be.
Yeah.
Like,
because of the person running around LinkedIn.
Exactly. Because there's all that going on. And I just think we're in a new economy. We're in a new age. And so it takes high velocity. It takes the right skill set and the right mindset. But anybody can crack their marketing if they're just, they're single focused on what the actual goal is, and they find the right partners to help them.
That's awesome, man. Well, Dallin, I appreciate you taking the time. If somebody wants to find you, where can they find you?
Shoot me a text, give me a call, 385-317-3744. Or you can find us at roarmedia.io online. Perfect. Everywhere. So
perfect, man. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate it. We'll have to do it again sometime. Okay.
Do it. Thanks, Kirby. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap up this edition of Delivering Marketing Joy. We'll see you next time.